This video is a call to action in response to the Massachusetts Attorney General's, for all intents and purposes, complete banning of magazine-fed semi-automatic rifles regardless of appearance. That was announced yesterday, and her attitude was she doesn't care, and unfortunately in that particular state, in this particular situation, she has the legal authority to make that kind of executive action. But that kind of action cannot go unanswered. There has to be consequences, and those consequences must be brought by the entire Second Amendment community. That Second Amendment community are the consumers and the users of the products, as well as the manufacturers of the products and ammunition, as well as all of those in whichever state you live, including the states who support the Second Amendment and see what this Attorney General has done as a complete travesty. So I'm going to go through just a few specific actions that are ideas that could and should be implemented with the rationale for each. The first action I'm going to put in the boycott category, but it's the reverse boycott. It's a boycott by the manufacturers to the state of Massachusetts. And it would look like this. Effective immediately, no firearms, parts, service, or ammunition will be sold to any law enforcement organization in the state of Massachusetts until this ruling is reversed or overturned. Now, some would say this is anti-law enforcement. It's no different than teachers going on strike. And it's not without precedent in Massachusetts. A few years ago, Smith and Wesson, during the Clinton administration, decided they would get all froggy and cozy up to the Clinton administration and support the assault weapons ban. They lost 44% of their revenue because the NRA communicated to us that we need to put Smith and Wesson in the penalty box. And Smith and Wesson withdrew their support and became a strong advocate against that. The same would be true. Law enforcement should never be armed greater than the citizens that they serve. So why would a person get to have a firearm that I can't have just because they go to work one day and put on a uniform, right? And oh, by the way, if all of these bad, evil rifles are removed, then why do they need them? Why do they need them, right? The noise level, especially the Attorney General, is the prosecutor for the state. And if the prosecutor for the state, who is elected by the people, pisses off enough of law enforcement because they won't reverse the decision, guess who's going to be out of a job? So that's step number one. Boycott all law enforcement sales, service of all firearms. That's long guns, handguns, whatever. Now, don't go start feeling sorry for the firearms manufacturers. You take a look at this chart here. Of the $11 billion they made in U.S. revenue, 2012, 60% of their revenue was from you and me. 60%. Only 15% was from law enforcement. And this is in the entire country. What I'm talking about is kicking ass in Massachusetts for now. And the same could be done for California or any state that misbehaves, right? Because there's a whole lot more of us making that 60 million than law enforcement who don't spend their own money generating the 15%. And that's everything. The other thing, don't worry about the profit. We, you and I, the citizens, pay way more per firearm than law enforcement does. Trust me. They pay about half of what you and I have to pay to get the same firearm. So don't feel sorry about them and, oh, they're going to lose money. It's not about that. It's not about that. Their revenues and profits are growing not because the military or law enforcement are buying more. It's because you and I are buying more. So their choice is, do they put 15% at risk or 60% at risk and get collapsed like Smith and Wesson got collapsed a few years ago? They get to make the choice, but we, you and I, have to stand by our decision. Boycott Massachusetts sales to law enforcement. Or the companies that don't, they get boycotted by us. So that's action number one. Action number two is legislative. All politics are local. So to prevent this kind of stupidity in your state, what you do is you get your legislators to either create a constitutional amendment or a referendum by the people or a legislative law that says citizens cannot be prohibited from owning or using defensive equipment, including firearms, that are authorized for use by any law enforcement agency in the state. What that means is, if I can't have it, you can't have it. Now, for our colleagues who are law enforcement, and you don't want to have your stuff taken, like we don't want to have our stuff taken, you have that conversation with your legislators, as well as your top prosecuting or law enforcement person in the state, which is your Attorney General. Now, sometimes one's a Democrat and the governor's a different one, or there are different flavors. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The point is, if you want it, don't take it away from us. And if we can't have it, you shouldn't either. So, think about that. Take whatever action you want, because I know what I'm going to do. Thanks for watching. Carry on.